Hi. The purpose of this video is to provide a comprehensive overview of Scrum Framework. Please subscribe to our channel and stay with us during this video. The topics we will cover in this video include introducing the instructor, difference between Agile and Waterfall, Agile Waterfall Spectrum, Agile Manifesto, Agile Principles, Agile Methodology Types, Scrum, a framework within Agile methodology, Scrum structure, Scrum roles, user stories, Scrum ceremonies, Scrum Master and Product Owner in Scrum ceremonies. Make sure you release something to demo and review every sprint, burnout chart, and some common terminology review. We will wrap up the video with a quiz, including the discussion of the answers. Before talking about Agile and Scrum, let's revisit the Waterfall methodology. In Waterfall methodology, there are 5 main stages of initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and closeout. Initiation is the first phase during which the project's overall goal and objectives are identified, project stakeholders are identified, and the high-level scope, requirements, etc. are captured. The main output of the initiation phase is the project charter. After the initiation, the project goes through the planning phase. Detailed planning is done to capture project detailed scope, schedule, and budget. These are called project baselines. Moreover, project risk plan, communication plan, and other relevant documents are produced. After planning, the execution as well as monitoring and control phases start in parallel. During the execution, the project team works according to the project plan to achieve project milestones. As part of monitoring and control, the project manager ensures that the project is progressing according to the project plan and does not deviate from project baselines. Also, project manager monitors risks and issues and ensures they are responded to. Closeout is the last phase in which project deliverables are delivered, project lessons learned are documented, and the project is officially closed. Agile methodology, however, is an iterative and feedback-enabled approach. Please pay attention to both the iterative and feedback-enabled nature of the Agile methodology. Unlike Waterfall, there is no detailed planning phase in Agile. Instead, there is ideally an initial discovery, solution design, and high-level planning. Then the project goes through different iterations, and based on the feedback from each iteration, further planning and solution enhancements and adjustments happen. This helps that the project ongoingly stays in sync with the project end user and/or customer through the iterative feedback received. Now, which one is the better methodology? Waterfall or Agile? The answer is that there is no better methodology. Depending on the project contingencies and needs, Agile or Waterfall can suit the project. For example, for some projects with significant uncertainties and high likelihood of changes, Agile is the better methodology. For more certain and less ambiguous projects where there is not much change is expected, Waterfall is the better methodology. While not a formally defined approach, Many organizations follow a hybrid version of Agile and Waterfall based on their needs. This can happen, for instance, when the project requirements are not certain enough, and thus agility to accommodate for changes is needed. However, the organization has a good idea of high-level requirements and wants to make sure that these requirements are met. An example of this approach may be defining the charter for the project to capture the business case and high-level requirements. However, not much time is spent on the planning phase. Instead, the project is divided into 2 to 4 weeks time intervals, referred to as sprint in Agile methodology. The project team plans only for the scope of work included during this time frame. The key is to present the output of the sprint to the stakeholders and users and gain their feedback. Contingent on the feedback and other information coming into light, the next sprint is defined and worked on. This approach is continued until the project is completed. The documentation related to the closing stage is then carried over. Please note that this was an example. There can be different hybrid approaches depending on the contingencies and the needs of the project. Agile Manifesto for Software Development states that we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. That is, while there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. There are 12 Agile principles. We follow these principles. Our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. Welcome changing requirements, even late in development. Agile processes harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. Deliver working software frequently, from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, with a preference to the shorter timescale. Business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. Build projects around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and support they need, and trust them to get the job done. The most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. Working software is the primary measure of progress. Agile processes promote sustainable development. The sponsors, developers, and users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, is essential. The best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. At regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. There are different types of Agile: Kanban, Scrum, Extreme Programming, and more. Some of these Agile types are named on this diagram. Among different Agile types, Scrum is very common and popular. From this slide on, we will be focusing on Scrum. We start by an overall description of Scrum framework, and then we will go over Scrum structure, Scrum roles, work breakdown in Scrum, and more. In Scrum, time is divided into time-boxed iterations called sprint. Each iteration or sprint is normally 2 to 4 weeks. 2-week sprints are very common. During each sprint, the team develops a demoable product increment of the work. At the end of the sprint, the team demos the feature to the end user/customer and receives customer feedback. Based on the feedback, The team iterates and adjusts their solution design and plan and moves to the next sprint. At the end of the sprint, the team reflects on their performance during the sprint and collectively thinks of what went well, what could have gone better, what can they start, stop, and more. The input to each sprint is the prioritized and refined work plan for the sprint. The output is the product increment that the team produces. At the end of the sprint, the team demos this product increment to the product customer or user and receives their feedback. Based on this feedback, the team adjusts the solution and the work plan for the next sprint. This adjusted work becomes the input for the following sprint, and the process continues. Demoing to the product user and customer and receiving their feedback every sprint ensures that the team and the product customer stay aligned ongoingly. Let's focus on the sprint structure in a little more depth. First, note that the project work is divided into work units called user stories. These work units form the product backlog. Product backlog should be prioritized and refined continuously. Before the first sprint, the team needs to meet and refine user top priority user stories. Then the sprint starts with a sprint planning meeting. During this meeting, refined stories that are needed for the first product increment are picked up by the team members. Then the team starts working on these items. Please note that ideally, every sprint should have a goal which is normally associated with achieving the product increment planned for the sprint. Every day during the Scrum, the team meets for a short period of time, for example 15 minutes. These short meetings are called daily stand-ups. The purpose of the daily stand-ups is for the team members to update each other. Each team member talks about 3 things. What I did yesterday, what I will work on today, what are the roadblocks and impediments. After the stand-up, a team member called Scrum Master reaches out to relevant people to remove the impediments and unblock the team members. At the end of the sprint, the team demos the product increment that they have produced to the product customer and or user. Other stakeholders sometimes attend the demo as well. After this demo, the product customer and or the user provide their feedback. This feedback enables the team to iterate and adjust the work for the next sprint if needed. As mentioned, in Scrum, work is divided into work units called user stories. What the product user wants and why the user wants it is captured in the user stories. Therefore, the user stories ideally follow this format. As a user, I want X so that Y. Or as a user type, I want X so that Y. For example, assume that your product is an app that includes different cooking recipes. Then as an international food enthusiast, I want to see recipe categories by country so that I can track meals that I cook by country. A story normally has a clear title, description which is clear enough by the person who will work on it, acceptance criteria that should be all fulfilled, and any other information that is needed. User stories that are similar and fulfill the same purpose are called epics. In other words, epics are larger bodies of work that are decomposed to user stories. Sometimes the team needs to do some investigation before doing actual work. These investigations are called spikes. And of course, as the team works on the stories, defects are found. These defects are captured as separate tickets and are referred to as bugs. User stories should be invest. What does it mean? It means that the story should be independent, negotiable, valuable, estimated, small, meaning that they can fit into one sprint or less, and testable. Having consistency in writing user stories is crucial so that team members can comprehend the stories better. To achieve this consistency, it is advised that the team generates a reference document when they form on their work approach. It's important that the team collectively generates and agrees on this reference document. This reference document normally includes the team's definition of ready and team's definition of done. Definition of ready, also referred to as DOR, includes items that a user story should have before it can be picked up and worked on. Common DOR items are: story has a clear title. The story has a complete list of acceptance criteria. The story has a description which is clear to the team. The story is estimated. Story is linked to the proper epic. The dependency between the story and dependent stories is reflected. How to test approach. All supporting documents needed for the work is attached or linked in the story. Please note that these items are common DOR items, but they are not the only ones. Each team should generate their own DOR list. Definition of done, also referred to as DOD, includes items that should be satisfied and completed before the story can be called done and closed. Common DOD items are: acceptance criteria should be all completed. The story should be fully tested. The story should be deployed to a certain environment. Relevant documentation to the story should be documented in a certain place, and more. Please note that these items are common DOD items, but they are not the only ones. Each team should generate their own DOD list. The Scrum team is composed of one Scrum Master, one Product Owner, and the rest are other team members. Scrum Master acts as a servant leader to the team. The Scrum Master facilitates the Scrum ceremonies, shares Scrum best practices with the team, removes team impediments, reaching out to relevant people to do so if needed, analyzes the team's performance in the sprint and shares it with the team, ensures the team has a reference agreed document on how they work including DOR and DOD, tracks retrospective action items and updating the team, M on the progress. The Product Owner share product vision, prioritizes and organizes the product backlog, write user stories, bring stories to groom in backlog refinement meetings, bring prioritized groomed user stories to sprint planning, ensures that the sprints are planned in alignment with the product roadmap. Stories are estimated during one of the Scrum ceremonies called backlog refinement, also known as backlog grooming. Estimation of user stories in Scrum is very unique. First of all, stories are not estimated based on time. They are estimate based on complexity, scope, and uncertainties. The estimation unit is in points. For example, a story that is not very complex, is very clear, and has a small scope can be 1 point. A story with some more complexity, scope, and uncertainty can be 3 points. And a very complex, large, and uncertain story can be 5 or 8 points. Also, note that the estimation is based on Fibonacci sequence. Fibonacci sequence numbers are as follow: 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on. Therefore, We cannot have a 4-point story or 6-point story. There are different approaches to estimating within the Fibonacci sequence. For example, you can choose a small story as an anchor story and as a team decide that this is a 1-point story. Then, you can compare other stories in terms of scope, complexity, and uncertainty to your anchor story and point them. For example, a story similar to your anchor story in terms of complexity, uncertainty, and scope can be estimated as 1 point. A story that is of the same complexity and uncertainty, but is a little more complex can be 3. A story that is of greater complexity, uncertainty, and scope can be 3 or 5, depending on what the team thinks. And a significantly large, complex, and uncertain can be 13. Another method is that the team can compare stories to each other to point them relevant to each other. For example, let's say the team has just estimated a story which is 3. The next story is of same complexity and uncertainty, however, a little larger in scope. The team can estimate this story as 5. One important note is that if a story is estimated to be larger than 1 sprint, it needs to be broken down into smaller stories that fit within 1 sprint. Another important note is that the estimate should include the entire effort, including development, testing, deployment, and so on. So if a story includes development and testing, the estimate should reflect both. A good practice is that all team members show their vote, number of points that they think the story estimate is, at the same time. This reduces biases. Different team members likely show different numbers. In that case, the Scrum Master facilitates a short discussion so that team members briefly provide the reading behind their estimate. After that, the team agrees on the estimate that they think is most appropriate. And one last note, only team members who directly work on the stories vote their estimate. Therefore, the Scrum Master and Product Owner don't vote, unless they will be directly working on the stories. Now, let's talk about Scrum ceremonies. Scrum ceremonies are recurring meetings that happen every sprint. I have summarized these ceremonies in the next slide. Stand-ups. Stand-ups are short team huddles that normally happen every day. They are sometimes referred to as daily stand-ups. During stand-ups, team members to update each other on what they did yesterday, what will they work on today, and what are the roadblocks. Please note that the team members update each other in the stand-ups. Also, any conversation outside the 3 stand-up questions should be parked and discussed after the stand-up. The Scrum Master should make sure that this happens. Moreover, the Scrum Master should take note of the roadblocks, conform them with the team after the stand-up, and reach out to relevant people to unblock the team members. Backlog refinement, also referred to as backlog grooming, are meetings during which team members refine and estimate user stories collectively. Backlog refinements usually happen once or twice every sprint, depending on the team agreement and the amount of stories that need to be refined. The product owner prepares and brings prioritized stories to backlog refinement meetings. Product owner introduces these user stories to the team so that A. Team understands the stories. B. Capture any correction, clarification, or additional information that needs to be added to the user stories and spikes. C. The team to estimate the user stories and spikes in terms of complexity, scope, and uncertainties in story points. Sprint planning happens at the beginning of each sprint. The product owner brings prioritized and refined stories, bugs, and spikes to the sprint planning. Please note that the stories brought to the sprint planning should have been already estimated prior to sprint planning during backlog refinement. Moreover, these stories should have been already prioritized by the product owner in alignment with the product roadmap. During the sprint planning, team members select user stories to work on based on prioritized and refined user stories, bugs, and spikes. Please note that the sprint should have a goal and the story should be planned in a way that by the end of the sprints the sprint goals is achieved and that the team produces a product increment. The sprint goal should be aligned with the product roadmap. Sprint review, also known as sprint demo. Sprint demo or sprint review happens at the end of the sprint. During the sprint review, team members demo the product increment that the team has completed in the sprint to the customer/end user and receive their feedback. This feedback is key to the team's ability to iterate and stay aligned with what the customer/end user wants. Sprint retrospectives, also referred to as retro. Sprint retrospectives also happen at the end of the sprint. The purpose of the retro is for the team to reflect on the sprint and discuss what went well, give each other kudos, what could have gone better, what the team can start and stop. Please note that there should be any blame game during retrospective meetings. It should be a safe area with ideally only team members. Based on the retro discussions, often action items come up. Scrum Master can document and track these action items. It is important that the Scrum Master A. publishes the action items and ensures the action items accessible to the team so that they are aware of it. B. ensures action items have owners. The owner can be the Scrum Master or other team members. C. follows up with the action item owners. D. updates the team on the progress of the action items. We have learned about the Scrum Master and the product owners. We also just went over different Scrum ceremonies. So let's explore the role of the Scrum Master and the product owner in each of the ceremonies in a little more depth. Let's start with stand-ups. Scrum Master plays a key role in daily stand-ups. Scrum Master facilitates the stand-ups, takes notes and confirms the roadblocks, ensures conversations outside stand-up 3 questions are parked for the sidebar, ensures sidebars happen after the stand-up. After the stand-up is over, reaches to relevant people to remove the roadblocks and updates the team. The product owner, however, attends the stand-ups just like other team members. Now let's talk about backlog refinement. The Scrum Master ensures team members vote their estimate, ideally at the same time, per the Fibonacci sequence. The Scrum Master also facilitates short discussions after team members vote their estimate for each story and ensures that the team decides on an estimate that they think is appropriate. The product owner role is more significant during the backlog refinements. The product owner brings prioritized stories, spikes, and bugs to the backlog refinement sessions, introduces the stories, spikes, and bugs to the team members and answers the team's product-related questions, refines the stories, spikes, and bugs based on team members' questions and comments, and adds the estimate that the team has decided to the stories, spikes, and bugs. Now let's review Scrum Master's role in sprint planning sessions. The Scrum Master ensures that stories are picked up in a way that they are focused to achieve the sprint goal, and ensures that the stories are within the team's capacity. The product owner's role is sprint planning sessions include bringing prioritized stories, spikes, and bugs that are refined and estimated and are aligned with the product vision and roadmap to the sprint planning. Introducing the stories, spikes, and bugs per priority and aligning with the sprint goal so that team members pick up these stories. Assigning the stories, spikes, and bugs to the team members who have picked the stories. Let's review the sprint review, also known as sprint demo now. If the team needs a dry run before the demo, the Scrum Master schedules it. Also, the Scrum Master works with the product owner and other team members to create a demo outline prior to the demo if needed. Finally, the Scrum Master facilitates the meeting so that team members demo their item. The product owner attends the meeting and asks and answers questions if needed. Now, let's talk about the retrospective ceremonies. The Scrum Master's role in retrospective roles is very significant. The Scrum Master updates the team on the status and progress of action items from the previous retro. Allows time so that team members post their comments on what went well, what could have gone better, shoutouts, and so on. Organizes teams and facilitates so that the team members discuss the comments. One way is to ask team members to vote on the comments and discuss comments based on the number of votes. Takes notes of action items and confirms the ownership of action items. Published the action items and their owner after the retro and shared it with the team. Tracking these action items on the team page is a good practice so that the team members stay aware of the action items' progress. And if there is a need for further discussion of certain topics, schedules follow-up sessions and invites members who would like to be part of that discussion. The product owner attends the retrospective ceremonies just like other team members. I hope this slide and the one before provide a comprehensive overview of the sprint ceremonies and the Scrum Master and product owner's role in them. One important thing to note is that the Scrum Master and product owner have many tasks outside the Scrum ceremonies. I have included some of these tasks in this slide. For example, one of Scrum Master's key responsibilities is to remove team members' roadblocks and impediments. As mentioned, the Scrum Master may not have the expertise to remove all of these blockers on his or her own. Therefore, it is expected that the Scrum Master reaches out to relevant people and experts to remove these roadblocks and impediments. Moreover, it's a very good practice to inform the team when the blockers are removed so that the team is aware. Also, the Scrum Master facilitates and documents team's agreement on team's references such as definition of done, definition of ready, team's approach to estimation, etc. Moreover, the Scrum Master updates the document per the team's suggestion and communicates these updates to the entire team. It is important that the team is aware of and aligned on the most up-to-date versions of team references. Another important part of the Scrum Master's tasks outside the ceremonies is following up on the retro action items and updating the team members. Please note that some retro action items may be assigned to the Scrum Master himself or herself. In that case, actioning the retro action items that he or she owns is yet another part of Scrum Master's job. There are times that the team or some team members may need to meet on an ad hoc basis. Facilitating some of such ad hoc meetings is also normally part of Scrum Master's job. Another area where the Scrum Master can provide value is analyzing the sprint performance. The Scrum Master analyzes sprint performance and communicates this analysis to the team. The Scrum Master recommends practices to improve and acknowledges good practices to sustain. As the Agile subject matter expert on the team, the Scrum Master shares Scrum best practices with the team. In addition, the Scrum Master normally helps the team by answering the team's questions on Scrum practices. So the Scrum Master can create value by sharing the Scrum knowledge both proactively and reactively. Now let's talk about some of the product owner's tasks outside the ceremonies. The product owner receives the product vision and requirements from the leaders. Understand the product roadmap. If needed, the product owner contributes to generating the product roadmap. The product owner creates user stories based on product vision and requirements. In doing so, sometimes the product owner collaborates with technical subject matter experts such as solution architects or UX designers on the team to include relevant technical information in the stories. Moreover, the product owner is in charge of prioritizing the backlog. Prioritizing the stories based on the product roadmap is significantly important. Also, keeping the prioritization up to date is needed as the requirements and priorities may frequently change. Therefore, the product owner continuously prioritizes the product backlog based on changing product requirements. To be aware of product priority changes, the product owner may need to continuously check and align with product leaders depending on the project and work setting. In addition, the product owner needs to ensure that the team is aware of the priorities and priority changes. As the product subject matter expert on the team, answering team members' product-related questions is part of product owner responsibilities. Okay, so far we have learned about Agile, Scrum, which is a framework within Agile, Scrum structure, Scrum roles, user stories, and Scrum ceremonies. At this time, I would like to introduce some terminology that has been frequently used in Scrum. The source of this information is Scrum.org. Moreover, I have included the sources of the images I have used in the following slides. Feel free to visit them for extra information. The terms I will go over include product backlog, Scrum board, self-managing teams, burn-down chart, and burn-up chart. Product backlog. Product backlog is a Scrum artifact that consists of an ordered list of the work to be done in order to create, maintain, and sustain a product, managed by the product owner. Scrum board. Scrum board is a physical board to visualize information for and by the Scrum team, often used to manage sprint backlog. Scrum boards are an optional implementation within Scrum to make information visible. Managing. Scrum teams are cross-functional, meaning the members have all the skills necessary to create value each sprint. They are also self-managing, meaning they internally decide who does what, when, and how. Burn-down chart. Burn-down chart is a chart which shows the amount of work which is thought to remain in a backlog. Time is shown on the horizontal axis and work remaining on the vertical axis. As time progresses and items are drawn from the backlog and completed, a plot line showing work remaining may be expected to fall. The amount of work may be assessed in any of several ways, such as user story points or task hours. Work remaining in sprint backlogs and product backlogs may be communicated by means of a burn-down chart. Burn-up chart. Burn-up chart shows the amount of work which has been completed. Time is shown on the horizontal axis and work completed on the vertical axis. As time progresses and items are drawn from the backlog and completed, a plot line showing the work done may be expected to rise. The amount of work may be assessed in any of several ways, such as user story points or task hours. The amount of work considered to be in scope may also be plotted as a line. The burn-up can be expected to approach this line as work is completed. It has been a lot of information so far. Let's pause for a second and test your knowledge. For each question in the quiz, I have given you almost 30 seconds before I show the answer. Feel free to review and study the material on your own before you attempt this quiz. If you feel that you are ready now, give it a try now. Good luck. Question 1. Which one is the better methodology? Agile or Waterfall? The answer is that there is no better methodology. Depending on the project needs and the situation, Waterfall or Agile may work better. For example, for a project with low uncertainty and low likelihood of changes, Waterfall is probably the better methodology. However, for a project with high uncertainty and a high frequency of changes, Agile is probably the better methodology. Question 2. What happens to the other topics that are raised during the stand-ups? The Scrum Master should park these topics to be discussed after the stand-up. Question 3. Is the Scrum Master expected to remove the roadblocks alone? No. In fact, the Scrum Master may not have enough knowledge to do so. However, the Scrum Master should identify who can remove the blocker and reach out and follow up until the impediment is resolved. Question 4. Who is in charge of prioritizing the backlog? The product owner is in charge of prioritizing the backlog. Question 5. How does the Scrum framework help the project team stay aligned with the project customer? At the end of each sprint, the team demos the product increment they have worked on to the customer. The customer provides feedback, and based on this feedback, the team can iterate and stay aligned with what the customer wants. Please note that the customer can be external, internal, project sponsor, or other parties depending on the project. Question 6. The user stories are estimated by who? The stories are estimated by the entire team and during the backlog refinement ceremonies, also known as backlog grooming. Question 7. In what unit are the user stories estimated? User stories are estimated at the unit of story points. Story points are a measure of the story's complexity, uncertainty, and scope. Story points are based on the Fibonacci sequence. Question 8. Why is it recommended that the team members vote their estimates at the same time? Because team members voting at the same time reduces the biases. This way, team members declare the estimate that they actually believe is appropriate as opposed to just following other team members' estimates. Question 9. What is the difference between the definition of ready and the definition of done? The definition of ready, or DOR, refers to the criteria that a story should meet before it can be worked on. For example, the definition of ready may include: the story has a clear title. The story has a description that is understood by the team members. The story is estimated. All reference documents for the story are linked to the story. The story is linked to the appropriate epic. Dependent stories to the story are linked, and more. The definition of done, or DOD, refers to the criteria that a story should meet before it can be considered complete. For example, definition of done may include: all functions needed for the story are completed, such as development, testing, etc. Any documentation needed for the story is completed. The story is accepted by the product owner, and more. Question 9. Why is it important to action retrospective ceremony action items and update the team? Actioning Scrum ceremony action items helps the team achieve the improvement ideas that the team collectively generates. It also assures the team that their ideas and input are heard and that retrospective ceremonies are valuable and meaningful. In other words, it contributes to the team's iterative self-improvement, and it sustains the team's trust in Scrum. Question 10. User stories should be invest. What does this mean? It means that the story should be independent, negotiable, valuable, estimated, small, ideally should fit into a sprint or less, and tested. Question 11. What is the difference between the burn down chart and the burn up chart? Burn down chart shows the amount of work which is thought to remain in a backlog. Time is shown on the horizontal axis and work remaining on the vertical axis. As time progresses and items are drawn from the backlog and completed, a plot line showing work remaining may be expected to fall. The amount of work may be assessed in any of several ways, such as user story points or task hours. Work remaining in sprint backlogs and product backlogs may be communicated by means of a burn-down chart. The burn-up chart, which shows the amount of work which has been completed. Time is shown on the horizontal axis and work completed on the vertical axis. As time progresses and items are drawn from the backlog and completed, a plot line showing the work done may be expected to rise. The amount of work may be assessed in any of several ways, such as user story points or task hours. The amount of work considered to be in scope may also be plotted as a line. The burn-up can be expected to approach this line as work is completed. Question 12. What is the difference between the backlog and Scrum board? Product backlog is a Scrum artifact that consists of an ordered list of the work to be done in order to create, maintain, and sustain a product. Product backlog is managed by the product owner. On the other hand, Scrum board is a physical board to visualize information for and by the Scrum team, often used to manage the work plan for the sprint. Scrum boards are an optional implementation within Scrum to make information visible. In my experience, Scrum boards have been very useful. I hope you have found this video useful. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and follow our other videos on various topics such as Agile and Scrum, lean problem-solving skills, cognitive biases, people skills, and more. Also, be tuned for our future videos.